Thank you very much, kind sir. So welcome to this week's TOC. We've got a little bit of a lighter agenda this week due to the unavailability of the vulnerability working group to present. So we've just got our standing agenda for reviewing the actions from last week, a review of outstanding PRs, and then any other business. Has anyone got anything to add at this point? No. Okay, cool. So looking at the actions from last week, Eric, you got propose an RFC process to add or remove a repository from the working group scope.
I've been drafting this, but I haven't had a chance to submit it. So I'll try and get to this by next time we meet next week.
Okay, I will just make a copy and carry that one over. So then we've got a TOC review PR planning sheet for CF Korifi project launch. So I guess we have a name now as well.
We do. Korifi it is. Due to largely because the other two top three names had trademark issues, but it's a lovely name, and we're getting the trademarks filed this week. I believe we can start using that publicly now, and yeah, that'll be the name. Working on a logo. Obviously, we'll talk more about this at the CF on Kate's working group meeting, which is directly after this call.
Becoming a blocker at this point for the apps, do we think?
Hey, Norm, could you mute?
If an application is access gateway, the issue is a blocker. We can't move
Norm,
forward.
could you mute, Norm?
Norm's on a couple calls, I think.
Okay, either that or it was a very interesting one that was just segueing into us.
You might not want to record it and post it on YouTube.
Yeah, entirely possible that one. Okay, cool. So I'd actually not comprehended what PR was in that case. I was thinking pull request, but no, it's press release.
Ah, yeah.
Or public relations.
Yes. Yeah, public relations. Yeah.
Lossy compression.
Cool. All right. So yeah, we can call that one done. And then a TOC discussion for DNS and certificate consolidation with Chris.
Well, that could be another topic that we could really kick off today since Chris was out last week. I think we didn't do this. Yeah.
Right. I'll pull that down and I'll put that in as an AOB in that case for today. All right. Cool. Yeah, there we are. I saw that. I'll fix that later. Okay. So in terms of new PRs, we've got a few in there. So let's just open up chat and post these for people. So the first one we've got is adding David as a CAPI team member. So I think that's all. I'm just having a look at Greg's one on here. Yeah, so this one appears to be a little bit of one where Greg's getting a bit lost with the process in here, if I'm reading it correctly. This sounds like it might be a useful one just to do a quick bit of pairing with Greg on it, just to help get it over the line. Does anyone fancy volunteering for that one?
Greg and I talk every week, so I could do it.
Okay.
Is the goal? The problem is, Lee, I don't remember the process to add people. Like the blind leading the blind over here. I mean, did we land on we don't need permission? Like the working group lead should be able to do this, essentially manage the members themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because the working group is much, much closer to knowing exactly who should and shouldn't be approvers than we are in this situation. Right. So, it should really be down to Greg to find this in this case. And then if, he needs us to, because it's on a fork, they can just flag us and we can just rubber stamp and ship it in, and that's no problem.
Yeah, do the working group leads have right at permission to the main branch of the community repository? Just asking.
I think so, actually.
Yes.
I think we talked about it and added the work group leads explicitly.
Okay, cool. I will work with Greg to just try to commit it. And if he needs me to rubber stamp it so that, because it won't physically go through, then we'll do that and we'll report back that we had to do that.
Okay, that sounds excellent.
I mean, I'm wondering if this should also include adding David to the embedded YAML in the app runtime interfaces working group document, like as an approver. So again, this is something that we'd like to make non-redundant via automation, but it isn't yet.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
Good point. I'll start writing comments saying what on this here so we don't forget.
Okay. Cool. Then the next one that we've had come in is to add team members for PCF's Apps Manager. So that, again, I think looks pretty uncontroversial, and hopefully you can try that one with Greg at the same time.
Why is this a team now?
I think just because of the reverse engineered YAML file.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with working groups, right?
Yeah, I mean, eventually this is a team that should disappear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just that whole transitionary phase that's a little bit interesting. Okay. Well, let's drop that one there. And then the last new PR was the one that Eric raised to make my hacky script less hacky.
Still no tests.
Where we're going, we don't need tests. But yeah, that looks absolutely fine to me. So I can't see any problems with that one.
They're cleverly hidden as bugs.
Okay, so yeah, that's. I'm happy for you to just merge that one in, Eric.
Okay, sounds good. That'll make it easier for other people to try it out again as the next wave of iteration.
Yeah.
Because cherry picking and not committing the changes onto the merge commit for an RFC is a little bit finicky.
Yeah, gets a bit horrible. So yeah, best not to. So that's all cool. So then the outstanding PRs of note, there's the common stale bot.
Yeah, I should work on that. I've been being spammed by GitHub recently about all that like community like automation not working. So that's what I've been focused on. I'm currently in a support thread with GitHub because I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it's only so much bandwidth I can spend on this. So before adding a stale bot that I also have to maintain, I'd rather have the first piece of automation work.
Okay, cool. And there's the CF test helpers to org automation as well. That's a relatively recent one that has appeared. So Stephan, did your comments get resolved on that one? I'm guessing so, since you've approved it.
Yep. So, okay from my side.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think that should be just good to go then, as it's working group level.
Well, I think, Lee, this is part of the process that we were discussing. I think the first week you were out, so 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
About, this is adding a repository to the scope of a working group, in addition to adding it to the mechanical description of the CF org. So I think we what I'm writing up for that RFC is to say that if we're making a change to the scope of a working group, whether it's adding a repo or removing a repo, or even transferring a repo from one to another, that should require both the approval of the leads for any affected working group and at least a check by the TOC to make sure there's no shenanigans going on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So here's a +1 by Jochen is still missing. Yeah. I can ping him. No problem. He's already on the reviewers list, but just since I approved it now, could Jochen simply merge? Would that be acceptable, or should we do we need additional TOC approvals?
I mean, we should have the standard rules for any decision where we have a quorum of approval with enough time for abstentions or ignoring it, or time to object.
So I would ask him just to approve and not merge yet. And then we can look at it as, okay, no problem.
I'm just adding everyone else as reviewers.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, cool. So they were the new PRs and outstanding PRs of note, which thank you very much for separating those out. I'm guessing that was you, Eric. Very nicely done. Makes it much easier to follow.
Good.
So that's cool. So
when is the TOC gonna adopt GitHub projects for like keeping track of this? I mean,
good question.
The working groups most are. I mean, it's in the end just pull requests and issues.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. It might also help us distinguish between things that are primarily the TOC's responsibility versus primarily work group versus.
And then we can like see the stages, right? We see in which stage it is and like how long it takes to go to the next one or what we're waiting on.
Okay. If I get a chance, I might have a look at poking about with that. So.
I'm happy to pair on that. Like ping me. I've done it a bit, so I know how it works.
Cool. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so in terms of AOB, there's discussing DNS and certificate consolidation with Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, sorry to miss that at the beginning of last week. I did, pop into Slack on Monday. So, after the temporary fix had already been in place, there wasn't much to do. So I just put a palm tree next to my name and disregarded it for the rest of the week. But I'll work with Greg to make sure that we have the LF has power over the certificates and make sure that they get updated in a timely manner. Beyond that, I think there's a conversation we should have about if there are other resources like this that are with VMware that should be moved over. When PCF was spun down like a year and a half ago at this point now, I think, there's various apps that we moved and various things that got moved around, but I think maybe David and Eric and I can maybe audit all of those things and see what other things might need to get moved over. Not sure exactly what. And then in addition to that, I also, I think we realized kind of, if I was on vacation or out for a longer period of time, there there's not probably the necessary channels that the TOC needs to talk to LFIT. So I'll make sure that you have that this week, right? So in the future going forward, if I am totally unavailable, you can ping LFIT for something like this. That's something you should definitely have. So I'll make sure that happens this week.
Yeah, sounds good. Chris means PWS, not PCF. But other than that, that was pretty accurate.
Yes,
I think,
yes, PWS, not PCF. Yeah.
To give the full story there, like we owned the certificate, the CloudFront distribution, and the S3 bucket that's behind it. And the Linux Foundation owns the DNS entry. So Amazon was set up to auto renew the certificates, but once we moved the DNS out of Route 53, Amazon could no longer auto renew the certificates. And so then the auto renew failed because obviously we don't control the DNS entry. And then we actually sent requests via the administrative contact. So Amazon reached out to the administrative contacts on the DNS zone, whatever, who is record, to try to get approval to issue a certificate, but there was no answer. And then, I don't know, it's in a sunsetted scenario for VMware. So VMware IT actually did make an attempt to renew it, which was shocking to me because it's in the sunsetted area. I'm like, what does sunsetted mean to you? They're like, we've completed the sunsetting of it. I'm like, well, then why do you even try to renew the thing? They're like, well, we tried to renew everything. They're like, all right, fine. So they tried to renew it and weren't able to. I mean, this is going to be a huge pain to transfer all of it out of VMware. This is one of those things. There's two things that are very difficult to transfer. And on Amazon, this is not like a VMware Linux Foundation thing. This is like, there's a type of asset that's very difficult to transfer. It's an S3 bucket with millions of files because you can't transfer an S3 bucket. So you have to make a new S3 bucket. And you can transfer those millions of files. It takes a really, really long time, but you can do it, but the versions are lost. So if it's a versioned S3 bucket, and there's any version references, they stop working. It's just one of these things that's like literally untransferable. The other asset that I have in mind, so I guess my proposal with Greg and you, Chris, would be to move everything except the S3 bucket over to a CFF controlled thing, like the CloudFront distribution, the certificate and the DNS entry. If that's all in your control, then you really have control over it. In the meantime, we have this S3 bucket that's huge. We could kind of leave that at VMware forever. And we could think about making a new one for new build pack assets inside of the CFF. And maybe CloudFront is going to be smart enough to pull from two locations. We'll have to look into it. I'm hoping it might actually be able to do cool stuff like try two origins or whatever. We could change the naming scheme so that it knows which origin to use, something like that. I think the bigger problem is that we don't really know how to clean those files up either. So we'll be creating a larger and larger bill for the Linux Foundation, for the Cloud Foundry Foundation Fund, which I think is a problem. We need to figure out how to clean up those assets eventually, but it's not clear when you should clean them up. It's just like stem cells. Stem cells are the other asset that's very difficult, right? You cannot move an AMI between Amazon accounts. So we have all these light stem cell references that refer to like a VMware controlled account. And I think we can't fix that, but we can talk about making a new account, and maybe we have for Bionic actually.
We have a new account for Bionic. Yeah, that's on GCP actually. But it
can't be on GCP. It's an AMI.
Oh wait, yeah, it is. No. Yeah, so I'm talking about the heavy stem cells. Those
right.
So I don't know. It could be that we, for the AMIs, are still using the VMware account.
It could be. These are the things to think about. We're ideally going to come up with a list of assets that are needed at production for runtime of Cloud Foundry installs. The build packs DNS entry and delivery system was something that I hadn't thought about. The stem cell one is something I have thought about. Let's see if we can come up with any other examples. Maybe we even make a Slack channel for this initiative, Chris.
Yeah,
that's public, and we can invite people to weigh in and help us brainstorm what assets we would actually need for sure. Because there's assets needed at build time and assets needed at runtime. And I really want to make sure the runtime assets are well under control, properly under control. Because the build time assets, we can afford a delay or an outage on, but we just can't afford. Buildpacks.cloudfoundry.org turned out to be very important for everybody.
For sure.
People were saying apps were down. Why are apps down when you can't pull your build pack assets? That I couldn't figure out. Maybe you stop the app and you can't start it back up. I don't know. It sounds suspicious to me, but I certainly understand that builds were failing. CF pushes should be failing right at that point. Any questions about what happened there, or anybody want to tell me we're doing a bad job? Feel free.
Random thought. Could the existing account that this is in be migrated to LF? I.e., could we ask AWS to do that bit? Because I know that we migrate AWS accounts amongst different organizational entities, but I've never tried it cross-organizational boundaries before.
Yeah, it could. That was one of the things we talked about. The problem is that this was used for like 100 purposes. We put too many eggs in one basket on that one. Like, because it was the production, it was the only production bucket for Pivotal for a long time. It's like where we put all the production assets for PWS and Cloud Foundry when we owned it. So it just became this account that held all these production assets that were like, let's secure this one account really well. I don't know. That wasn't a great strategy. I think we've learned from that, and we have more account, purposefully specific accounts now, but we were young and naive back then.
Another question, did we explicitly ask AWS if they can technically transfer an S3 bucket? Because technically that shouldn't be a problem, right? Not having a UI for it doesn't mean that AWS support could actually help with that, right? It's a disk somewhere in their data center.
Yeah.
Part of a disk somewhere, or part of multiple disks, whatever, right? But it's something that is like, hopefully rather virtual, right? It's not a specific disk in a specific rack that is like reserved for this bucket.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. I think we want to know how much it costs before we think about moving it. But as long as we can afford the cost, then I think we should file a ticket. We'll lose write access when that happens, obviously, but it's a public bucket, so we shouldn't interrupt any of the readers. Then we'll just have to like issue new keys, make sure that the build packs pipelines are wired in. Doesn't sound like that dangerous of a transition if AWS can do it.
Well, why don't David, you and I and Eric do just meet sometime in the next week or two and kind of come up with a game plan for this. We can set up a Slack channel. And in the meantime, I'll also just reach out to Greg to get the build packs thing sorted out on its own.
I have a thing about the GitHub automation so it's currently blocked on some user. It's trying to invite that user and it's giving an invalid. I'm currently on a GitHub support thread, and they cannot disclose why this is happening because of privacy reasons. So maybe that person has blocked our invites or something. I don't know what that means. Can we just remove that user from the file? I mean, it's quite expensive for every failure. Like apparently people can reject the org or something, or get in a state where our like automation keeps inviting people while they have like basically said we don't want these invites or something, and then the automation keeps failing. Like it basically blocks everything. So it's like, I mean, I probably for this one need to figure out what's actually going on, but maybe we can like once we figure that out, I don't know, set some sort of precedent where we say like, if GitHub starts failing on this a particular user, we remove them from the org and they can PR back in.
That sounds pretty reasonable to me. Though knowing what the failure condition actually is definitely a useful thing, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, but you can imagine that if it keeps inviting you, maybe there's a blocking mechanism. Like that seems pretty reasonable to prevent spam.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like 600 potential reasons that our automation will fail, as in the number of members in our org. It's interesting.
Yeah, it'd be definitely interesting to know what the reasoning is. So yeah, look forward to finding out about that.
Ruben, is that username in the logs for the GitHub action, or like
Yes.
we could? Okay.
Yeah, it's someone from VMware. So I'm gonna reach out to see what's going on.
Okay, cool. Has anyone got anything else for this week?
One thing we said we'd check in on at this meeting was the fate of Stratos. But I know Norm has tentatively raised Stark and Wayne's hand. I believe they're still assessing whether or not they could commit people to maintain this. So we'll just leave that as a running topic until they're able to make a decision.
We're more on the positive side than negative, just let you know.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thanks, Norm.
Okay, excellent. All right. So in terms of actions then, Eric, you're going to continue the RFC for adding and removing repositories from the working group scope. And David, you're going to work with Greg on his current PRs. Have I missed anything for this week?
Nope.
No.
I think it would be worth giving an update on 2 security related things before we go.
Yep. Do you want these captured or not?
Yeah, Ron, can you pause? Just the recording, just because we're.
I wrote,
Sorry for pausing the recording for a minute, folks. We were talking about an upcoming security disclosure that we'll see shortly. And Ruben was asking just a question about what are working group leads when they go on vacation? Do we need coverage and so on?
No one particularly wants the circus problem, as we've discussed with CF, so with LFIT and Chris being a single point of contact. I would say it's always wise to have more people briefed in than a singular. But yeah, it's down to the working group really, I think, as to whether you want to continue those meetings or not.
I'm like, there's probably some guidance around, like, I would say that the people that would be standing in, like, would at least need to be an approver or something, right? Or is that not even a requirement?
I don't think it's really a requirement as such, but I think it would be generally the case. I'm kind of thinking ratcheting people up the ladder of contributor to approver to lead, you'd probably go that way.
I mean, even from a technical perspective, don't you need a host for the Zoom meeting? And I don't think that we want to give host permissions to just about everyone, right? So
those permissions are only available to LF or non-Linux Foundation, Cloud Foundation, right? So that's why Ram and Chris always join.
To all the working group meetings.
They know a lot about Cloud Foundry.
I mean, I think you could probably set them up so you don't need the host to start them. They could just be open. That you are at greater risk of squatters. Yeah,
we don't have to be there. We'll just start recording. But it's nice to. I mean, I'm going to watch them anyway, so it's nice to just do that in real time. And then, as far as the recording goes, it's nice to start it at the start time as opposed to editing it later. But yeah, all the meetings are set to record, and people can join them at any time. And there is some risk of nefarious actors joining them. But yeah, until that happens, we're in good shape.
That community video calls and recording is a solved problem in 2022, but apparently not. So
yeah, and I actually opened a ticket with Zoom to ask if we could to allow like inter-organizational guest hosts, and they don't allow that. Even if SAP has a paid account and Linux Foundation has a paid account, I can't set up someone from SAP as a host for a meeting, which is kind of unfortunate, but.
Yeah, then I'd say that's just let that be up to the working groups if it makes sense to meet. I mean, it doesn't make too much sense, right? That only some people interested in the working group meet there and no approver is present, then I wouldn't know what the agenda of that meeting should be. But like, I mean, if they want to just exchange problems they had and use that spot in their calendars, then even that, why not? But that's just up to the working groups. And if basically there is Linux Foundation staff in there anyway, then we can make sure that there's nothing weird happening, right? With those meetings and then what's happening there.
Okay, cool. If no one's got anything else for this week, then I guess we should gain 15 minutes back.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay.
Then
Bye.
see you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you very much, all. Take care.